Every game, every team, every angle. Locked On Game to Game, your team every day.
Welcome in, everyone, to Game SEC Edition. I'm Jordan Black. We have another great slate of Week 8 matchups to break down for you. In total, the SEC has seen a bit of turnover the past couple of weeks, with Alabama ready to roll back on track, while teams like Tennessee and Ole Miss keep climbing the top 25 boards. Coming off their performance against Alabama, and with Kentucky and Georgia looming on the schedule, there was some chance the Vols had a letdown against UT Martin this week. Some, but not much, right? If Tennessee is worth its weight as a title contender, this game should be under control early. The Skyhawks boast a dangerous pass rush that might be able to get home on Hendon Hooker, and UT Martin also has a top offense averaging 44 points per game in FCS thanks to a dangerous passing attack. Eric Kane from Locked On Vols has the post-game coverage.
Tennessee a 65-24 winner over today's UT Martin contest, and a complete waste of time. But hey, it was important for this team, obviously, to have the kind of this built-in breather, if you will. But again, the game was just never close. UT Martin drives down, scores on its second possession to tie the football game at 7-7, and from there on out, it was Tennessee, and Tennessee in a big way. Most important thing, Tennessee got out of here injury-free. You couldn't say that about the Akron game with Cedric Tillman, obviously, but you played Hendon Hooker, you played Jalen Hyatt. Hendon padded his Heisman campaign stats, 3 touchdowns, nearly 300 yards passing. You had Jalen Hyatt that padded his Biletnikoff award-winning resume as well. Tennessee did a whole lot of good things. They had almost 700 yards of total offense in this football game. There is no love loss between Jason Simpson, head coach UT Martin, and Josh Heupel. That is for sure. But Tennessee a 65-24 winner over UT Martin. The Volunteers now 7-0 to begin this football season. We'll get into SEC play beginning next week once again against Kentucky, then Georgia, and then on out through the rest of the season. We'll have a full breakdown of this UT Martin Tennessee football game on Locked On Vols coming up on Monday morning. But obviously, 65-24, a big win for Tennessee on homecoming up here on the Hill. I'm Eric Kane with Locked On Vols. Stay tuned for continual coverage of your Tennessee Volunteers.
Ole Miss is now ranked 7th in the country and has not shown signs of slowing down yet. And the Rebels are one of the top teams on third downs, a nightmare scenario when facing an uphill battle. And the Tiger passing game has posted 300-plus yards in 3 of the last 4 games. Plus, the running attack is complimentary enough. With Ole Miss sure to put points on the board, can LSU go toe-to-toe through 4 quarters is the true question. Stephen Willis from Locked On Ole Miss breaks down the battle from Baton Rouge.
Brian Kelly took it to Lane Kiffin in Baton Rouge. It was an epic beatdown. It was not really something you could tell coming into the game that you expected something like this to happen. It was even a pick'em game from Vegas. So, anyway, I'm Stephen Willis of the Locked On Ole Miss podcast. If you're looking for bright side moments from Ole Miss, Malik Heath had a decent game. A couple other players had a decent game. Injuries are a concern. Zach Evans did not play. Troy Brown went out. AJ Finley went out. That made it problematic. LSU kind of owned Ole Miss's defense in this game. And, the question is going to come up over the next couple of weeks. Is Ole Miss fraudulent? Or was this a fluke result? Next week, Texas A&M. Ole Miss has to go back on the road. This was the game they could lose, but they have to beat Bama. But we'll see. For more information, check out the Locked On Ole Miss podcast, your team every day.
And Caroline Fenton has the post-game coverage for us for Locked On LSU.
LSU taking down undefeated, top 10 ranked Ole Miss 45-20 in Tiger Stadium. I'm Caroline Fenton, host of Locked On LSU, and the story of the game could look at Jaden Daniels getting it done both in the air and on the ground. LSU getting off to a slow start, which we've seen from LSU pretty much throughout this entire season. So when I'm sitting there and Ole Miss is going up, 14-3, I'm thinking just wait for this team to come back, because that's what they've shown to be their best. A lot of flags thrown in this game, but Jaden Daniels truly was the one to get things going offensively. LSU can expect them to be ranked probably in the low teens coming up next week after taking down Ole Miss at home today.
Get right game, anyone. The Crimson Tide has done less rolling and more struggling of late, and Mississippi State is certainly no slouch, but following the game against Tennessee, Alabama needed to give itself a sense of dominance once again. The defense hasn't been perfect, no, but does a nice job getting off the field on third downs. A few quick series and good field position could get Bama on the right track once again. For Mississippi State, let's keep it simple. Cut out those insane number of penalties, and we could be talking upset special. With 15 penalties against Texas and 17 against Tennessee, you simply can't win with consistency making that many mistakes. Jimmy Stein from Locked on Bama has the postgame takeaways.
Hey, it's Luke Robinson with Locked on Bama. If it looks like I'm in a stairwell, I am, because I'm trying to wake up my wife and 6-year-old because I just got in from the Alabama game. Alabama, of course, won the game tonight, but man, it's hard to find a lot to be super satisfied about. That win should have been much, much more emphatic. You could tell 2 series into the game, Mississippi State shouldn't be in the same area code with Alabama. And, it just seems like our offensive production just wasn't there. And I don't think it's the players' fault. Yes, I think there's some deficiencies. Yes, I think there's some places Alabama can shore up the talent level. But overall, I was really down on the play calling. I just thought it was very lackluster. And honestly, a couple of Alabama's big plays were more about the improvisation of Bryce Young and how good he is. And I think he's the best player in the country. I don't think he'll win the Heisman again, but I think he's the best player in the country. Check out Locked on Bama this week, where we'll be talking about this and a lot more. But Alabama does win the game 30-6.
South Carolina has struggled all season to avoid turnovers, and Texas A&M tends to play low-scoring, tight games. The Gamecocks are surrendering 175 yards per contest on the ground, which could play into the Aggies' hands if they're patient. A&M isn't a high-powered offense, and the Gamecocks can stretch the field at times. Who protects the ball best may be the determining factor in this matchup. Andrew Lyon with Locked on Gamecocks breaks down the beatdown.
The Gamecocks got another proverbial monkey off their back with their win tonight. This one against the Texas A&M Aggies, marking their first ever win in the history of the series, dating all the way back to 2014. Hello, everyone. I'm Andrew Lyon, the Locked on Gamecocks podcast, checking back in with all of you. And wow, what a game it was. It was a closely contested battle from the start to the finish. The Gamecocks, of course, jumped out to a massive 17-0 lead because of some beamer ball, a kickoff return for a touchdown, 2 turnovers on defense, both leading to 10 points. But then the Aggies counterpunched, getting 14 points of their own in the second quarter, cutting it to a 3-point halftime lead. Then the third quarter, the Gamecocks were up 10 again, looking like they could put the game away. The Aggies got a strip sack, which led to a Von Achan touchdown on the ground, cutting the game back to 3 once again. And then the fourth quarter, the Aggies cut it back down to 6 at the very tail end and recovered an onside kick and even had 2 Hail Mary attempts to boot. But it was not enough to defeat the South Carolina Gamecocks. And again, it wasn't a perfect 4 quarters of football, but at the end of the day, winning is all that matters. Defense got after Haynes King today. The offense converted enough to help the defense out and get a humongous win once again that is going to continue to build the perception of what Shane Weber's trying to do here at South Carolina. I'm Andrew Lyon, the Locked on Gamecocks podcast, signing off for now, but you can best believe I have a lot more to say about this game on Monday.
2 teams under 500 and having been through the ringer by the SEC powerhouses look to settle themselves down on Saturday. The Missouri Tigers do a nice job controlling the game clock and time of possession, a harder task against the Alabamas of the world, but a smart approach against Vanderbilt. Now, the Commodores surrendered over 1,200 passing yards in the past 3 weeks, so if quarterback Brady Cook for MIZZOU can play smart, clean, chain-moving ball, the Tigers could grab the win. In the battle for control, the offensive line and run game for Vandy will need to put consistent pressure at the point of attack to keep the offense on the field in this matchup. Now, here are the post-game takeaways.
Missouri wins on homecoming, mostly on the back of the individual talent of Luther Burden. And as much as it was great to see Luther have a breakout game for the Tigers, well, a lot of concerns going into next week, including a terrible interception by Brady Cook. But you know what? I'm John Miller with the Locked on MIZZOU podcast. Check me out 5 days a week during the season at LockedOnMizzou.com. You can find the links to YouTube and everywhere you find finer podcasts. And I'll tell you, Missouri, excellent defensive performance once again against, in my opinion, an underrated Vanderbilt offense, but Missouri has to be able to score more points than that against a weak Vanderbilt defense. So frankly, if you're wanting a new offensive coordinator beyond Eli Drinkwitz. If you're wanting maybe to see Sam Horn or Tyler Macon or anybody else under center, well, those calls certainly haven't been muted after this ball game. So again, check me out, LockedOnMizzou.com.
Another wild week in the SEC with blowouts, battles, and of course, season-long impacts on the nation's top 25. With every win and loss, the Locked On Network's local experts will be here to break it down each and every week for you. I'm Jordan Black, and we'll see you next time right here on Game to Game SEC.